Great. Minasan konnichiwa. We are joined by DJ Riley Suave today. Check him out on Instagram. He is playing in C'est la Vie, Tokyo. Now that the state of lockdown is somewhat more relaxed, please make sure to check him out. I've got some amazing questions for him on his travels through Asia, introspection, DJing, and of course, game. If you saw his interview on Mac the Day Gamers channel, make sure to check that out because we're not going to do a repeat. We've got completely new questions. And the first question I have for you, Riley, is tell me, how did you get started in DJing? Let's start there.
Hey, what's up, guys? Thanks for listening. That's a good question. So it's kind of a funny story. When I moved to Japan, 3 years ago, 3.5 years ago, I was a student in Osaka doing my degree, and always wanted to get into DJing, play DJ gigs at clubs. I was super into techno and house music, going to festivals in Asia kind of got me into it. And basically, I lied and I messaged all these clubs saying, "Hey, I'm a DJ from America. I have all this experience. Like, can I play at your club?" I probably messaged like every club in Osaka. True story. And only one came back and said, "Okay, we'll give you a gig. Like, let's meet face to face." So they're like these two older Japanese DJs in their 40s or 50s. And they were just like super chill. They're like, "Oh, you look cool. Like, we'll get you in. We'll get you in." So I had this gig at this like kind of DJ bar slash club, very low key. And I sucked, yeah, at DJing. And like I made all these mistakes, but they didn't really care because they're just happy to have like a foreign face in the club or something like that. And then I started to learn from them, learned how to beat match, learned how to mix tracks more smoothly in the house format. And then from there, I got more gigs at other clubs, other events. And I opened up for like a famous techno DJ from Russia one time. And, just from there, it got build momentum. Now I'm in Tokyo playing hip hop DJ sets at like big clubs. Um, yeah, so it's kind of the story there.
That sounds like quite an adventure, and I gotta ask you a bit more about it. So, you really managed to, if I could say, almost finesse your way into the DJ game, or could some say fake it till you make it? But in a way, you kind of have to already see yourself as what you want to become,
Yeah.
if that's correct. So you must have at least used like a CDJ one time before, or was it all completely new to you?
I never used a CDJ before I did that first gig. I had a friend who was a classmate of mine at the uni who was a
Mm,
pretty good DJ. And he
mm,
had like a controller. He brought the controller over to my house. He kind of
mm.
showed me some stuff, but I didn't really know what was going on. And he was more of a hip hop DJ. So I get to the techno event and I'm trying to like cue in a new song from the previous song, and it's all like it's like all scratched up and like completely out of rhythm. And eventually, after like a couple more gigs there, I was watching the OG Japanese DJs, like, oh, like damn, we're like matching the BPM, like 125, 125. The bass is matched, like the cued it in. And something clicked in my brain, and all of a sudden, it's like, damn, like I can DJ like this too. So that kind of epiphany like opened up the whole concept of DJing for me. And from there, then I was like, okay, I know how to DJ now.
So you pretty much showed up with your USB. It's like, I'm here to DJ, here's my mix. And
Yeah.
did you do any sort of the night before preparation where you kind of put all your songs together? You're like, all right, I want to play this song, then this song, and
Yeah, exactly. I get my USB, put in record box, make a playlist for that event, put all the tracks I want. But any DJ knows, like, whenever you show up with that playlist, it's never gonna go the way you imagine. Like, you'll feel the vibe, the crowd, the scene. You'll be like, oh, I think that this song is actually better off. You'll go into your library, like during the set, pull up a track you think will fit, and then you'll whip that in. So, you know, you never really go exactly to your plan. So
So you got by just on confidence?
yeah, man, that's my style. Just like fuck it, let's go. You know, that's how I came.
Mm,
And I didn't know anything about Japan. I was like, I'm gonna come here and I'm gonna have a life, have some fun. That's my style. Um,
interesting. So you must have always been the type of person who figures things out as they go. You were like, I'll figure it out. I'll learn how to swim when I'm in the water. Was that your
I've,
whole?
I mean, you heard my podcast with Mac. Like, I started in Korea, fresh, completely didn't know anything about there. I moved to Taiwan, then I moved to Bangkok, and then after that, I moved to Japan. And I didn't know anything about those places. I didn't know the language. I didn't know any people. I didn't have any connections. I just went straight in, you know, just completely green. And honestly, some people like that. Some people are kind of not their style, but for me, I like get super I get super like worked up and jazzed up when I come to a completely new place I know nothing about. Like for some reason that like gets my juices going. Everybody's different, but for me, I love that kind of thing.
Interesting. I can definitely relate, and I've got plenty more questions about Asia in general.
Yeah,
So
man.
I like that you mentioned South Korea, and
Yeah.
annyeonghaseyo to all my Korean people out there. What
Say
unique thing? I notice every city I've ever been to has something unique that only that place does, and you almost take a bit of it with you. What was something unique, or a couple of things that that you saw in Korea that you kind of took with you? That you're like, oh, I like this. I'll take some of this. I'll take some of that.
Man, Korea. Wow. I mean, that was my first time in Asia, so it was like such a eye-opening, mind-opening kind of experience. Like I didn't know what to expect. I didn't have basically all my ideas of Asia were completely wrong, to be honest. Like going there, I thought like, dang, it's gonna be like poor or dirty, no technology, or like the food is gonna make me sick, or there's gonna be all kinds of weird things happening. I was scared. I had no idea what Asia would be like. I was totally wrong. I mean, I was living in the countryside, and I'm from the country in America. I'm from a very rural area, but the countryside in Korea, dang, there was like a convenience store I could walk to 24/7. I never experienced that. Like, a train station, buses, like nice Wi-Fi and technology. And basically they pretty much owned my hometown in terms of like living conditions. So, and then there was a lot more things that just kind of surprised me, like Asian culture, it's so different than Western culture and the way they interact. When it comes to Korea, they're very big on like eating together and drinking together, especially like the workplace people. So like after school, you have the hoishik, you have the go out to drink and eat sort of thing with the soju and the mikju and the beer and the barbecue and whatever. So that was really fun. I really like that part of Korean culture. Like they like to be close and eat and drink. Um, I think that was one of my favorite parts about Korean people in general.
So interesting. Yeah, I can definitely imagine all the camaraderie and, as you mentioned, the aesthetic and the changes of how you can, one second you're somewhere rural on a train ride, then the next second you're in a mega city, and it's like,
Yeah, man.
oh, did that just happen? And like, it really is an adventure, and the neon lights, the hangul written in different
Yeah,
places. When you drum straight into the kimchi, it's a lot of flavor. It's a lot of a lot of things
really.
happening. Um,
Wow.
do you remember any Korean phrases that you used to hear a lot? I find a lot of people visited Korea when they come back. There's always like a phrase in their head. Um,
Yeah, and I was pretty good at Korean, you know, since like 좋아요, 좋다, like it's good, everything's good, or like 대박. 대박 is like awesome, or like 여자친구 있어요? Like, do you have a girlfriend?
Those phrases you hear all the time.
Yeah.
Wow.
Or like 좋겠다, like girls would say that, especially like I died means like oh my god, like that's too much, or like it's you know like tiring, or like too much, overwhelming, basically. Yeah.
It never leaves you. Once it's in you, it never leaves. Especially when I was watching Squid Game, all those things just keep coming back. You're like, oh, I know what he meant. I know what he said. I didn't have to look at the subtitle for that one. So it is an
Do you
amazing thing. So having been
do
in
you
Korea, usually there are two types of foreigners in Korea. There are those that stay a year, and there are those that stay 10 years. What made you then set your life path like, all right, I'm not gonna live my K-pop fantasy, marry a Korean wife, and stay here? What made you now continue on?
good question, because when I was at like month 7 or 8, I was like, I fucking love Korea. I want to stay here forever. I'm gonna marry a Korean, and buy a house, and become like a Korean person, citizen. And then somewhere around month 9 or 10, something got to me, and I was like, I think I have to get out of here. And I love Korea, and it was a great experience, but something got under my skin. It was like the thing about Korean culture, it's kind of it has some dark side to it, and it has some certain issues with society, like that you kind of pick up on, that kind of shock you a little bit. Like gender inequality, for one, is super bad in Korea. And you start to hear stories about like what women have been through in Korea, and you're like, whoa, that's kind of fucked up. Um, and then like the social hierarchy is like super vivid, super tangible in Korea, and men at the top pretty much have all the power, you know, and they really wield that over other people too. Um, that, and I think my dating experiences, dating Korean women, it's like a roller coaster ride. It's either hot or cold. It's like they love you to death, or they hate you, and they want you to die. That's how it feels. And that could be from yesterday to the next day. It could change like that. So you're like, fuck. Like this is like an emotional roller coaster. Like I'm tired. Like I'm like at the end of Korea, I felt like very emotional for some reason. I felt like my heart had been all over the place or something. I was like, I need some more like just easy coasting.
Why do you think that was? Do you think it was like the K dramas, life imitating art, and then art now creating life? What?
I think it's like Korean culture, in the history of Korea. Like what I remember is my coworkers would say like Korea, they'd be like, Riley, Korea, so weak. So everybody comes and fights Korea. We always lose. China, Japan, America, North Korea. We are a peninsula, so exposed. So they've just been through this like history of just being conquered and like beaten around. And I think that kind of is a reflection of their culture in some way, and why they have like that kind of like expression of sorrow, and expression of like also working together, coming together, and bonding as well at the same time. That's just my take on it, but I think there could be other factors as well.
Definitely. I can agree that a big part of not just Korea or Asia, but any country in the world, there's always a massive impact of history and geographic location that shapes a lot of people's identity and culture. Where
Yeah.
some places you go, they're like, we are beach people. the beach is everything. Life must be relaxed. Then you'll meet someone who's from like New York and it'll be like, yeah, it's New York, city life, fast, everything. And they sometimes carry that identity throughout. They say, no, because where I live is like this, all of life must be like this. And then when you've now traveled a little bit, your identity also becomes a bit unhinged. And you're like, you have a Korean gear, then you have an American gear, then you have a Japanese gear,
Yeah.
and you become, yeah, you get an interesting sort of a edge to your personality. And very interesting that you mentioned again Korea as a peninsula and how there's um, this feeling of us versus the Chinese, us versus the Americans, us versus the Japanese.
Yeah.
And because it's in the education and the news, every news article is sort of just you're seeing that
Yeah.
from every angle. It develops, you start thinking a certain way. Whereas
Yeah.
there are some people who are half Korean and half Japanese. There are
Mhm.
Japanese people who lived in Korea. There are Korean people who have lived their whole lives in Japan.
Yeah.
And you sort of see what there's one thing that the news is telling you, and then the reality on the floor is sometimes a little bit different. So very interesting that you mentioned how that now also affects the dating, where now you're dating someone and you're sometimes a normal Korean relationship, if you've seen a K drama, is really like a roller coaster. Literally, if you're sometimes, at least I've had the experience, not all, but you'll be with someone and they're like, things are going a bit too well. We need to throw a wrench into the works. I need to have a big, and it has to be public. And she needs to have a
Thorn
tantrum and really just, and I found one of the reasons they do that, and all women do this. In Korea, it comes out in a different way. But in
yeah.
my opinion, one of the reasons why this happens is she wants to see, am I with a real man? Are
Yeah.
you able to control where your life is going? Can I go crazy and can you bring me back in line? And for the longest time, I never knew. And I pondered this many nights. Why did this have to happen like this? Why is my friend telling me that he's been through the same thing? And everyone I've asked is the same thing. And
Yeah.
my understanding of it now is wherever you go in life, a lot of these things are just repeat occurrences. A lot of the experiences you have in life are just going to recur and happen again and again and again. And this
This
shit
is
has happened since childhood. Like
yeah.
at least, but it's not about me. I need to ask. So you're in Korea, you're doing all these amazing things. Then you mentioned, oh man, society, it's not all it's cracked up to be. Korea is
Yeah.
still an amazing place. I'm sure you're planning to visit or tour again someday. Then you went to Taiwan. Now tell me, what was the special thing that Taiwan had that you're like, oh, I gotta be in Taiwan now?
Um, Man. Well, one of my closest friends, a British dude from Korea who's also a teacher in my program, was like, "Yo, I've been to Taiwan. It was like the coolest country. Like everybody's so friendly. The girls are super nice. Like it's so chill. It's beautiful." And I was like, "Wait, where's Taiwan?" Like, is Taiwan is in China? Like, I didn't even know what was about Taiwan. So I just like Googled it and I was like, whoa, damn. It's like this tropical subtropical island. You know, it's small. It's like not China, but they speak Chinese. They have like seems like a different culture than China. So I went home to the States, got a teaching license, which is a funny story. And then the prerequisite for teaching in Taiwanese public schools is a teaching license. So I got a teaching license and then
Is
ended
that
up
the
in,
TESOL?
no, like a certified state teaching license.
Oh,
But one of the
like a TEFL.
stipulations, no, like a licensed national teaching license from your
Oh
home
boy.
country.
Okay.
So one of the stipulations for Taiwan is that a substitute teaching license qualifies. So I don't know if I want to expose some things about myself, but it was very
Yeah,
easy to
nah,
get
don't do
us
it. It ain't worth it.
in America. And I did get one. And then I was like, hey, what's up, Taiwan? I have this license. And then they're like, okay, cool. You can teach in the public school system. So I got a job at a junior high school in a city called Hualien in Taiwan. It's a smaller city on the coast. on the East Coast, and I chose there because they have the great weather, clean air, beautiful nature, and there's a bit of a city there, so it's not like just completely in the countryside, which is where I was in Korea. And man, I just popped into Taiwan, started learning Chinese, started figuring things out, got a cool little apartment in the city. I got a little scooter, like a moped, so I could tool around. Um, met the expat community, kind of got the laydown of what's up there. My job was really cool. It was also very challenging, teaching 3 grades. I completely designed and developed the whole curriculum for the school. I didn't use any textbooks, so that was the challenge. And my students were all minority Taiwanese, so they're native Taiwanese, called Renjuming, which is like the Aboriginal Taiwanese. So they're from tribes. Their family is from tribes, and they're not descendants of China. So that was really interesting. Different appearance, different culture, and that was pretty cool to kind of see what how they were. Um, so yeah, I was there for a year, like loved it, had a great time in that city. Then at that point I was pretty much done teaching English. I felt like I couldn't do that anymore. I was pretty much spent. So I moved to Taipei with some savings. Also mentioned at that time I paid off all my student debt from America, from Korea and Taiwan. So I was like, shit, freedom. So I moved to Taipei, and that's when I got my first modeling gig, and which was hilarious. And then from there, I started getting a couple more modeling, acting gigs, and started getting into that scene. And I was living in Taipei with 2 like expats in this like ramshackle apartment right in the middle of the city, just being a party boy, being a bit of a playboy, just living my life. And I did that for a few months, and then I left Taiwan, and that goes to another chapter in my life. So
Nice. Okay, I got some Taiwan questions for you. Now,
yeah,
having come from, okay, so they had the break in USA in between, but I'll just from
yeah.
Korea to Taiwan, what were some of the little differences you saw? So the kimchi, the rice, I mean, the music
Oh,
everywhere. How did that now compare to Taiwanese food and, Taiwanese like people and
oh,
the aesthetic? How was that?
yeah. I mean, honestly, I think Korean food is in Asia was the healthiest food. Like after living in Korea, I felt fit. Like I was exercising in the gym like 2 or 3 times a week, but I was trim. I had no fat on me. Like Korean food is just so balanced and like full of vegetables and like fermented pickled food, which is really good for you. Taiwanese food, on the other hand, is quite oily. Like they put oil in everything, even the vegetable dishes. So you kind of feel a little heavy. There's also a lot of like dumplings, like the like, I don't know how to say in English, like those big meat dumplings, and what are those
Dim
called? I
sum?
don't,
I know, maybe that's the Chinese name
yeah,
for it.
called
Mm.
mantou,
Oh,
mantou
wow.
in Chinese. It's like this big meat bun, so to speak.
Mm.
Fried rice, fried noodles, like all that was awesome. Tastes great. It's very like it's like home cooking kind of food.
The home of
Um,
bubble tea.
it's cheap as well. Yeah, yeah, bubble tea shops everywhere. Great tea. Taiwan has great tea, that's for sure. So food was different, but I still liked it, of course. Um, what was your other questions about Taiwan?
And also just the aesthetic. I notice in Korea, like people have a click way of dressing. Like if you're in the in crowd, it's a North Face jacket. You're wearing a very specific type of pencil skirt. It's
Yeah.
there's like cool. There's like a manual to what is cool. You have to do this, and you are cool in Korea. Whereas I noticed in Taiwan, it's sort of just you do you. Whatever you're about, do that. And there wasn't as much of a uniformity
Yeah,
as Korea. Just my opinion. Maybe, you know, someone who
you're
lives
very
in Taiwan will be like, "This man's talking bullshit. There's no such thing."
no,
So,
you're right. You're right. Korean fashion, they like to be monogamous and all dress the same. Maybe I'm looking for homogenous is the word, not monogamous.
maybe they're also monogamous too. They do marry one partner usually.
Yeah, homogenous fashion is definitely a thing. Like, oh man, like it's like a uniform. Like, men have bowl cut, black blazer, t-shirt with some like Marvel or like thing, weird, awkward English on it, black pants that are cut off above the ankles, white socks, white Adidas shoes, maybe a sweater. That's Korean man. Korean woman is like, yeah, blazer, skirt, stockings, maybe Adidas shoes or clogs, nice shirt or sweater, and straight hair,
Yep.
maybe dyed
Yep.
with the fringe and the see-through bangs,
Yep.
and the white foundation, red lips.
Yep.
There you go.
Then when you go to
Yeah,
Gangnam, they're all visiting the same plastic surgeon, like same
yeah.
S line, same. This is what hot in Korea is. This is what it is. And
You
mm,
could do a whole like sociological study on like Korean
mm,
fashion. Anyway, and then Taiwan, it's yeah, different. Like they like to do different things, but again, I feel like they all kind of have kind of a simple fashion, like a lot of Nike, a lot of brand name stuff, a lot of black, um, a lot of kind of imitating American fashion, like but like big brand names like Nike, Reebok, um, a lot of like, black jeans, black shirts. It's very simple. It's very kind of monotone, I would say. Like black and white is very much in. Yeah, that's what I remember most from Taiwan. Just a lot of black and white fashion. There wasn't a much like, damn, like this person is really like expressive or like has their own fashion. They're really into black and white. That's what
okay.
I remember.
And I see you're also a tattoo person. What did you notice a difference between popular Korean tattoos and Taiwanese tattoos?
For sure. Well, Korea has actually a really cool tattoo culture, especially when it comes to like the watercolor style tattoo, which I did get one of those tattoos in Korea. And that's one of my, I would say, favorite tattoos. It's like a massive flower watercolor style tattoo.
Nice.
They
And
really,
that's such a big thing about Asia. Sorry to cut you off. The craftsmanship and attention to detail is some of the highest I've ever seen in the world. Very, very intricate little things like,
sure.
yeah.
I would say Koreans probably take the cake when it comes to those detailed tattoos. They have like a very interesting niche there, and some of the tattooists are like amazing, detailed, and they kind of develop their own tattoo style there. I'd say, like, especially when it comes to the watercolor, like fine detailed ones. Um, Taiwanese is more simple. Like they do a lot of the irezumi, like the Japanese, like the shoulder samurai kind of like yakuza looking tattoo. Those are quite popular in Taiwan, or just like whatever normal style tattoos. I wouldn't say Taiwan has really their own tattoo culture. Um, mm, Maybe
Very
I'm wrong.
interesting. Okay, okay. And these two very amazing places, Korea, Taiwan. And then from there, you're like, all right, I need to complete the trifecta. You went to Japan.
Yeah. Well, right
Yeah.
after Taiwan, actually, I went straight to Bangkok,
Oh boy.
and I was in Bangkok for 3 months.
People
Um,
go there, get lost, and never found again. Their
yeah,
bodies come
that's what.
back, but the mind stays stays in the.
Yeah, I
How was
almost
that?
that whole. Yeah, 3 months was enough for me, and I was like, okay, I gotta get out of here, or else something's gonna happen to me. Um, you know, and I was drinking, partying, living life, spend all my money. And then I was like, okay, I gotta go home. So I went back home for a few months to get my shit together. And I applied to school in Japan. Luckily, got accepted, and I was like, okay, now my life is on track again. But
It feels like that sometimes, eh? You go back home and you're in Asia being a rock star, you come back home and you get humbled.
yeah,
Massively, massively humbled. Everyone's looking at you like, what what are you doing? Where are you going? And you're like, I don't really know
yeah,
either. And
yeah. Sometimes you're like, wow, that was a lot of fun, but like, what am I doing? I'm not making money. I'm just like being a delinquent or whatever, you know.
with a lot of cool
And
stories.
you know, a lot of cool stories, a lot of fun, but you come around your parents, and your parents kind of like, you know, sharpen you up. Like, okay, time to like get your act together again. You know, so
Hectic. And
that's
how
what
was the food in Bangkok?
spicy.
Oh wow.
Yeah, I woke up every morning, mm, and I felt it in my stomach.
Very, very interesting. Especially if
It
you
was
look
time.
at the geographic location. There you've got India, no, no, India on one side, China on the other, and there's kind of like a slider of,
Yeah,
how
yeah.
Chinese you're getting or how close to India you're getting. And I believe Thailand's
Interesting.
neighbors are Burma, Malaysia. So again, very interesting mix of cultures. So I think when picking an Asian country to go to, pick your preference. See how hectic you want to go on the
Wow,
on
that's
the
interesting.
sliders. How was game in Bangkok as well? Because I always imagined, at least in my opinion, that there's almost like a difficulty level based on the country as well. Like if you like to go heavy on partying, then Bangkok is where to be. But if you're now like a talker or that kind of thing, then you go to a
Yeah,
less party
yeah,
heavy country.
Bangkok people are really friendly. Girls are really friendly, really open, really forward. They like foreigners. It's no secret. Um, you know, if you're not getting some in Thailand, I don't know. You're just a really awkward person to be.
Possibly. And I think the money goes a bit further in Thailand as well. So the exchange rate is quite kind.
For
And
sure.
I think for those who are super, super duper struggling,
Yeah,
you can, some say you can do a little bit better. Not that you'll become a superstar or playboy, but you'll do a little bit better. Thailand,
yeah.
Philippines, and very
Um,
beautiful beaches. And
I've never been to Philippines, but I hear
oh wow,
it's quite prolific
oh wow,
when it comes
oh wow, oh wow.
to the dating world or the hooking up. But yeah, Thailand. I mean, Thailand. You know, as I said with Mac, that's when I started to kind of do more of the day gaming or the street gaming or the more street gaming. But I was really it really I've kind of been through this whole evolution, and I've changed the way I talk to girls, how I do it, what kind of state I'm in. And in Thailand, I was still drinking alcohol a lot then, so that played a definitely, whether you drink or not, that I think really affects how you approach women. And as you heard with Mac on that channel, I don't drink alcohol anymore. It's been 2 years, coming up on 2.5 years now. So that's completely changed my dynamic on how I approach women, how I talk to women. Because before, be like, oh damn, like I have to be in a club drinking to find a girl, or at least I have to be like had some beers in me or something like that. Um, but since I stopped that, like things have changed a lot for me. So that's a whole nother conversation topic there.
Congratulations on the sobriety. And it's so important how you've seen in yourself the growth in philosophy has created a growth in lifestyle, has, created your way of being.
Yeah,
And I think, that it really is an amazing thing that you mentioned you felt evolution at each
yeah,
point. You haven't remained, which is the fear for so many foreign people, especially teaching English, a fear of stagnance. Like, oh, I'm not growing, I'm not doing this. has my
Yeah.
ride stopped? And stagnance is death. It is a
Yeah.
very, very terrible thing. So it's amazing that you found, especially that internal growth is
Yeah.
something that it almost feels like it has to be triggered sometimes. Like you can chase it, chase it, chase it, and never find it. And then after years of chasing, sometimes in an instant, the one thing I had to
Yeah.
change was this thing all
Yeah.
along. So
For sure.
please tell me more about this massive growth you felt from that kind of thing. Where so now you're saying, okay, I don't need drinking anymore.
Yeah.
Why did you feel you needed to drink before?
Yeah. Well, drinking helped me. I started drinking at 18, and that helped me, get laid. It helped me talk to girls. It helped me have fun. It helped me, be able to enjoy a party or a dance floor and not feel scared or awkward, because alcohol, it gives you that kind of like, I don't give a fuck mentality. I'm just gonna have fun. All your inhibitions are gone temporarily, at least. So yeah, in a way, it did help in many cases break the ice for me. Um, but around 26, then I reached like 8 years of doing that, and I started to feel like, question, is the alcohol really benefiting me now? Like, do I need it? Do I feel any different, drunk or sober? And I started to think like, actually, I don't. It's not really benefiting me, and maybe I can just go without it. I've been in clubs and parties enough to know what it's like. Maybe I don't need the alcohol. So I kind of thought about like, I really want to quit drinking. Um, and what actually, it was a very specific thing that led me to stopping. Um, I signed up for a 10-day meditation program in Japan called Vipassana, and it's very strict. Like, it's a silent meditation. You can't uh, talk for 10 days, segregated, gender segregated. You can't drink, you can't smoke. It's vegetarian. Um, you meditate for 14 hours a day. And the teacher teaches you all sorts of stuff about drugs, alcohol, sex, stress. And he basically told me, like, you don't need to drink to get rid of your anxiety or nervousness at a party. You can use meditation. And I was like, something in me clicked. And from that point on, I never drank again. So from the meditation program, I stopped drinking alcohol. And that, I think, started to change me in the biggest way. Uh, yeah, in the last, it's been like 2 3 years. That change was by far the biggest in my life, for sure.
What an incredible feeling to be able to have, that freedom and not have to rely on something to, as you said, free the anxiety or restraint. Now you can self-regulate and just reach do it yourself,
Yeah,
unlocking the matrix. And
yeah,
it
yeah,
I had a friend who also had a similar experience of he mentioned a massive benefit from meditation, and he
mhm,
was like, oh wow, I never knew I could have learned something like this all along. And it's so tied into childhood and small or big traumas you may have been through, and just life patterns that you've picked up from your days in the US. And then it's it's a theme that it's explored in so much psychology and even anime. I'm not going to go down the anime path today because then we'll be here the whole day. But a big part of they say the hero's journey is self mastery and
yeah,
learning who you are, what you are, and why you are. And when you can regulate and control that, which when you're a child, you can't regulate your emotions and your feelings. You sort of rely on your parents to do that for you. And sometimes, if your parents haven't quite got it, then
yeah.
it continues and you get that generational trauma where you're always just, this is how we are. And that shapes culture. And you
Yeah,
start to
true.
see it in, we mentioned Korea, Taiwan, and just why in some places people are this way, other places people are that way. And the belief I'm under now is that all people are in fact the same, all races, all this. It's just different geographies and different life experiences that may shaped us a bit differently.
Yeah.
But at our core, I'm under the belief that we're all the same type of thing. We're all KFC. We're just different flavors. Some are barbecue, some are original recipe, some are this, but we're all we're all the same thing. Um, Stunning. Now I need to do justice to Japan. So you went to Japan, Osaka, Western
Mhm.
Japan, whole lot of flavor, a lot of Korean people as well. And how did it feel? Because everyone who's been around Asia always says Japan is something else, man. That place, it's how did Osaka feel?
Oh, well, I chose Osaka specifically because I'd been there as a tourist once, and I love the vibe, the people. It's just you could feel it, like feel more warmth there, feel more friendliness, more buzzing energy. People are just more down to earth. So, and Japan kind of weirded me out the first time. I was like, I felt that coldness in general, but Osaka had some warmth. So I specifically was like, I'm gonna go to Osaka. That's where I'm gonna live, and that was a great decision because Osaka people are, I'd say, the friendliest in Japan. Um, no regrets. So yeah. Um,
Amazing. And it's so interesting that you visited so many different countries in Asia because you, as you mentioned, how what you see when you were in the US, how it's not what you think it's going to be like. It kind of there's you'll see some familiar things because you've sort of been preconditioned with a lot of like TV, anime, music, or even
yeah,
erotic film that nah, the women are going to be like this. They're going to be super submissive. It'll all be this. But then when you go there and you see that it's just a lot of a society is a society, people are people, not all are equal. Some are at the top, some are at the bottom, some are all over, some are dealing with this, some are dealing with that, some are rich, some are poor. And you see, they're real people that feel. And uh, we've almost been neglecting now dating now. What was it like dating in Osaka?
yeah. Um, Damn. Well, when I first came there, I failed so hard with Japanese girls.
As we all
That
do.
first, I think, but like compared, like the first night I was in Thailand, I got laid with a Thai girl. And whereas in Japan, it took me, I think, 4 or 5 months to finally get with a Japanese girl. Just to show you a contrast. Um, and I was like, what's wrong with me? Like, why am I failing? Like, I hooked up with foreigners and stuff like that, but Japanese girls, they would just seem to elude me so much. And I was like, what is happening? Like, I couldn't figure it out. Um, and now I know why, looking back, like, unless you, Japan is what it is Japan is so Japan. And unless you don't know Japan, you don't know the culture, the way, a bit of the language, good luck. Good luck, buddy. Unless you meet a girl who's like so into like foreigners that she just doesn't care and she speaks English. But like you're in Osaka, the English level is not like it is in Tokyo. So, um, you know, you're going to have to figure out what Japan is about first to get into the game there with the local women. So,
Big time.
um,
Big time. A friend
big,
of mine described it as you have to learn how to crack the code. You're going to go through a really massive drought, and that's your learning, your pain period. You have to learn and understand why. And then when you figure it out, then the floodgates open. Then you start to see, oh, wait, things are going well with her, and her too, and her too. They all, yeah, there's a code and a procedure
then you're
to it.
position.
Um,
Yeah.
what, it's very interesting that you mentioned this, that you mentioned Japan is so Japan. Could we talk about that in a bit more detail? What were some of the little things you were like, what are some of the big no-nos? Like instant fail, if you say this, you are done.
they're sensitive to how you come off, to how you talk, to how you behave. Um, and they only know Japanese way mostly, most of them. So they'll act like they love you, like, oh, I'm so nice to meet you. You're a foreigner, like you're so cool, you're so handsome, like, yeah, let's be friends. And they'll act like that, but that's not really what they're like. It's a face, it's a facade. Underneath, like they're actually simultaneously sussing you out to see like if you know what's up. Like if you know how Japan is, if you know like how they talk, how they are, how things work, scheduling dynamics, all this stuff. They're checking you. See, like,
Big time.
so that smiley, happy, laughy thing, it might you might don't let that trick you.
Yep.
um,
Yep.
oh God, like I remember I was in the park and like some chicks ran over to me and my friends like, come join us, have a picnic with us. And one of them was like a model and she was all like, oh yeah, let's go drink later and everything. And I was like,
What?
well, damn, I got their contact. I was like, everything's working out. And then like
Oh
ghosted,
no.
ghosted.
Yep.
And I was like, I think I know why. Like I didn't know much Japanese. Like I'm fresh, I look green, so yeah, that's kind of
Let's
what's
analyze that. Okay, here's a good one. Now I can
yeah.
pick up a few things, and again, I spend many nights pondering these things, looking back, because that's the trap sometimes Japan plays with you. Like you'll see the most beautiful girl, and you'll just be like, "Oh, if only, she'll change my life." And one thing that I've picked up is Japanese women, as all women, but particularly Japanese women, are particularly sensitive to this. Don't like a thirsty guy. A guy who's a bit too thirsty is instant fail. And their reactions are a bit more subtle. Because again, as
Mhm.
you mentioned, in Japan, at least in my experience, Mac disagrees with me on this, but I said Japanese women, in my opinion, never say no.
Mm.
Yes means maybe. Maybe means no.
True,
And
true, true,
no
true.
means hell no. You're going to jail. If a Japanese woman says no to you, you fucked up big time. That is a no no.
That's
So,
horrible.
and they look for very, very subtle things. And when they speak to you, that's when they're gathering information on you. They're asking you, what is your job? What do you
Yep,
do? Very little things. And you
yep.
have to always lead. Now, all women around the world want a man who leads. And for the longest
Sure.
time, I didn't know that. I was trapped in like a feminist bubble where I was like, no, it's 50-50. I'll do some
What do you
shit. No, there's none of that. And I realized that uh, Japanese women, just like as you mentioned, Korean women, how sometimes it's like a roller coaster, they all test in very different ways. Korean women learn how to test based on K dramas. They're like, I need to uh, have a tantrum or act bitchy or tell him, make him jealous. Let's see if I can alter him. Let's see if that's how Korean women most play it.
Yep.
Japanese women play it very, very subtly, doing other little things. Like when you take a Japanese woman out on a date, she'll reach for a wallet, but she'll never find it. She's testing
Uh,
to see how much money you have, how much can she influence you. And you always lead. This thinking of sometimes Japanese women, you'll ask them out on a date, and she must never decide where the date is going to be. Don't ever let her suggest, or you
don't
must
ask,
lead with a plan. And
don't ask her.
I used to
I,
fall into all those traps. Now, the particular one you mentioned in the park now, where they came up to you and asked to join the tea party,
mm,
the way a lot of Japanese women play it is they play it almost like okay, because I'm from Africa, I'll use an African example. You know, in the African savannah, and there's like the lion and he's chasing the deer.
yeah.
That's kind of how they do it. They sort of get into your vicinity and they're like, hey, look at me. I'm here. Smile, do something. Sometimes they won't even smile because they're also nervous talking to you. So you have to lead and you have to attack. You have to go for it and you have to make a move on them. And I used to go because I've been a dancer 20 years and I'd go to like nightclubs in Japan. And sometimes Japanese women would be into me, but I would never really know because they'll sort of
Oh,
just put themselves in my vicinity. And I'd be like, oh, am I supposed to do something? I don't know. Let me try talk to them, introduce myself. And then they'll freak
yep,
out and run away. And it's like, nope, the order of
yep.
things in Japan is a little bit different. Sometimes it's hook up first and then get to know them.
Get
This thing of, oh, hi, nice to meet you. Yeah. She doesn't want to do work. She's like, ah, this guy's a nerd, he's a square. Sometimes they have this stereotype or trope of that foreigners are like ambitious. They'll just take you. And that's the fantasy that they want. If you now try play it like a Japanese guy of, oh, nice to meet you. Here's my business card. She's like, nah, this dude is a square, man. They want that experience. And I couldn't crack it for the longest time. I was trying to be a Japanese guy, trying to speak as much Japanese as possible. And sometimes speaking too much Japanese will shoot you in the foot because now you're not fulfilling that need that they're looking for. And I was so pissed off. And yeah,
it's
life, huh?
well, you learn though. That's the most important thing,
Yeah, or I
Like
think I've
you,
learned. Maybe it's total bullshit, and
yeah,
it's
like
maybe it's
Jap.
something else. Who knows?
You're right. Like for one, sadly, they're kind of superficial, and they're gonna look at you like how you dress,
Mm.
what kind of clothes you wear. They like guys that are confident, that know
All
how to
women,
direct.
all women,
All
anywhere in the world have been. All women want confidence, but they test for it in different ways. But all women
right,
want the same. I think because I believe all people are fundamentally the same. There's an original archetype of like the of an ideal man, and every country sort of has it. There's the ideal Korean, there's the ideal Japanese guy, there's the ideal
mhm,
foreigner. Like we all have
yeah,
niches, but in my belief, certain things work
yeah.
well always.
But with Japanese girls, especially, they want you to direct everything, like set up the date, where, when, what you're gonna do. Just you're the guide, pretty
Yeah.
much. I mean, there's a little bit of give and take, but and you want to kind of check in with them, like how they're
Mm.
feeling. Like, say you go to dinner, and after dinner, you're like, you want to go have some tea at my
Mm.
place or something like.
Yep.
And if they're like no resistance, whatever, like okay, just keep going.
Yeah.
So
Sometimes
don't
I
be
have to
like,
resist too, and they do it on purpose because she doesn't want to look cheap. So she's like,
true.
I have to see. They set that little trap for you, like,
But
oh,
what they
yeah,
say and what their vibe is,
yeah,
the vibe is most important.
mm,
Check their vibe. They may
yeah,
say like, or like you meet a girl in the club and you're like, well, we can bounce back to mine or something. And she'd be like, no, but her
yeah,
body language is saying completely otherwise.
yeah,
And then all of a sudden, you're just walking towards your place.
yeah.
You know what I mean?
She's like, be smoother, sell
So
it to me differently, and you're like, all right, cool, got this, I
you
got
got to
this.
sense their energy. You got to
Yeah.
sense their vibe. Um, another, what else can I say? Another thing with Japanese girls. Yeah, they want to know what your money is. They want to know what your status is. And
You
this
never tell
sounds
him.
cheap.
He meets
My
you.
Instagram
I never tell him.
helps me huge. I got like 50,000 followers on my Instagram, which I paid for it. Okay,
Mm.
whatever.
Nah,
But
you
I,
finessed it. You did something amazing to make that happen.
but
So own
at
it.
the same, to be fair, I do modeling in Japan. I'm a freelance model. I'm a freelance actor. I've been on Japanese TV dramas. I've been in like music videos with like one of the biggest J-pop band. I've, done modeling for clothing and brands and stuff. So I do have some credibility. It's not just all like, kind of, fudged together. So that also helps the whole package. I say I do modeling, I do DJing, and I mention a club that they know. They're like, what? You DJ at this club? All this kind of cred goes a long way. And I wish it wasn't so. I wish I could be like, hey, I'm me. Like, I like art and like talking about spirituality. You want to have tea at my place? Like, I wish I could say that. But when it comes to like the typical Japanese girl, no, 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 no.
Yeah.
So unfortunately, you do have to kind of like, maybe after you kind of present that, you can have like a genuine conversation with them and they might actually be more down to earth. But unfortunately, people judge you based on your attributes and your looks, like right off the bat. And like your vibe, especially
Yep.
your confidence, is also really important. Like, what if you can speak Japanese, if you know what's up with how they think, how their minds are, how to read them, what
Mm.
is going on in a chick's mind from whichever country. Of course, it depends country to country. Like if
Mm.
you go to like Jamaica, like gonna be completely different than like uh, uh girl in Japan you meet on the street, you know?
Mm.
So all these things to consider. Yeah.
Definitely. And I like how you also mentioned how the mistake a lot of people make is they show their life philosophy and they come with as much sincerity as possible. And they're like, oh, please pick me, pick me. This is the real me. I'm a good guy. I'm not like those other bad guys who are just trying to mess you around. And deep down, she wants those bad guys who are like, because a big thing about them is they've got ambition and they know where they're going and they're not putting her in
Yeah.
control. And all I realize fundamentally all women are like this. It's just that in Japan, it's drawn in a different way that we can't recognize it. But I think usually like the top guys in Japan, like the guys who are like taking over everything,
Yeah.
fundamentally they behave exactly the same as the top guys in the US or the top guys in, Europe or anywhere else. And I was like, ah, I see. So
Yeah.
I also like how you mentioned life philosophy, and I messaged you on Instagram initially, and thanks so much for your amazing replies and networking. And I can tell you now, you getting your amount of IG followers was not some just hack. You definitely do market well, and you are
Yeah.
on podcasts, you are replying, you are giving good content, and you do have good photos. So
Thank you, man.
I must say, like, your IG is not just a hack; it's actual
Yeah.
work and marketing. You mentioned the
Yes.
law of attraction, and it's a big theme in many of the stories you've described, from DJing to going to
Yeah.
different countries. And in Mac's podcast, you mentioned a friend from Jamaica who was big, big, big on embracing this law of attraction. Please tell me how that philosophy has really, influenced you
Yeah.
and kept you going.
I mean, yeah. If I were to say one person that had impacted my life the most, it would be him. And I would say he's like my closest friend, kind of brother in Japan in my life. And I met him right after I finished the meditation, like a couple months later. I was at working at this festival and I saw this guy with long dreadlocks kind of sitting in the corner chewing a piece of grass all by himself. Looked like he didn't know anybody. I was like, what? This guy looks like he has some sort of vibe. Like I have to at least say hi, what's up? And I went over and talked to him and he knew I was coming over to talk to him. He's like, hey, what's up, man? And we chatted. I was like, oh, actually, I've never met someone from Jamaica. And then he said, well, I'm a yoga teacher and I also do like tantra and meditation and you know, talk about spirituality stuff. And I was like, I mentioned I just came back from a meditation, and then we had a lot to talk about in our first conversation. And he is a kind of guy when you start getting into that topic, it's a how do you say it, like a non-surface level conversation, you know,
There was a lot of depth to it, and
right, straight into
mm,
the meat of something.
mm,
And I was like, I like people like that can
mm,
get, it's not a surface level conversation, because that's the kind of person I am. Like I can do surface level conversations for like 5 or 10 minutes and then I get kind of bored. And so we were talking about like very deep things like meditation and trauma and spirituality. And then he was kind of new to Japan, so he was asking me how my dating life is. And at the time, to be honest, it was pretty crap. And I was saying like, man, like I was just kind of whining about all the girls and like complaining about my experiences, and it was very negative about
yep.
that topic. And he's like, okay, man, let me give you some tips, some advice for the next time you have a
Oh
date with a
wow.
girl. And he started to give me basically what was um, the the kind of ways of law of attraction and
Mm.
positive manifestation.
Please share. I'm
And
at the edge of my seat. Tell me something
yeah,
life changing. Mm.
this really changed not only my dating but my whole life outlook. And he also gave me a book which was really impactful. It's called Ask and It Is Given by Abraham Hicks. This woman named Esther Hicks
Taking notes. Asking it's given.
uh,
Okay. Taking notes.
wrote. And this book, I think, very well, very greatly embodies the whole idea of law of attraction and positive manifestation. And basically, you have something that you want and you can't get it for some reason. And what most people do, oh shit, your battery.
Oh, excusez-moi. Let me manifest a new battery. Just a moment. See that? Okay, please continue.
So about this book is about, positive manifestation, and the idea is basically you have something that you want, but you don't have it right now, or you're having trouble getting it, or you're having some difficulty getting it. What most people do is they get all worked up and frustrated and pissed off and like, I can't get it because of this and this and that and that, and they get all down and hurt about it, and they whine to their friends, which is exactly what I was doing to this guy. I was like, just kept ruminating on my failures of dating, and he's like, okay, man, do this. Think about like the ideal situation you want, and why do you want it? And he was like, what do you want? He's like, I was like, I want more success with dating Japanese girls. And he's like, why do you want it? Because it would feel good. It would make me more confident. I would have good fun experiences with attractive females, and who wouldn't want that? And he's like, okay, man, keep that in the forefront of your mind. And also, I think the biggest step was, it wasn't even just women. I was complaining about the nightlife, the music, things about Japan. And he's like, okay, bro, it's all about turning your frequency to things that feel good, turning your frequency to things that are positive. So he's like, so say you go to a club, they're not playing the music you like, but I guarantee there's something good in that club. There's something that's good in that club. So turn your attention to that. So it's all about uh, directing your attention to things that feel good, directing your attention that bring joy, directing your attention to things that are positive. Because in any given situation, there's going to be negative, there's going to be positive. You know, you might be at a party where the people kind of aren't great, but there is something there at that party that's good. Maybe it's the food, maybe it could be something simple, like it's a cozy house, or there's one person there that is actually interesting. So then you put all your focus on that rather than complaining and whining and focusing on the negative aspects, which we as people tend to do so much, is that we focus on the bad parts of things. Even when majority of things actually are good, we choose to wrap ourselves up around the small things that are bothering us. And so that's what I was doing. So he's like, on your next date, instead of getting all annoyed or bitter about what you don't like about the girl, focus on what you do like, whether it's her smile, whether it's her hair, her fashion, her something she said. Focus on the good things, and that will bring your vibe in your energy into a kind of positive aura. And what happens when your energy is in that positive state, it will attract positive things from the outside. And that's the law of attraction. What your internal vibe is uh, determines what energy is brought in from the outside. That's the law of attraction right there. So
That
if
is
you're
so profound, eh?
in a constant state of negative energy, what's going to come from the outside? More negativity, more negativity. So if you bring your energy, your frequency, as the book says, to a place of feeling good, then automatically, without even expecting it, good things from the outside will come to you when you don't even expect it. So I tried this experiment like a week after I met this guy. I went to a club, and I'm like, usually I would complain about the music and everything, but I was like, okay, I'm going to focus on things I like about this club. So I started focusing, and, I just started dancing a little bit. And this girl came right over to me. She's like, hey, what's up? Like, where are you from? And she wasn't even Japanese, but whatever, I didn't care. And she was like Burmese American, and she, you know, we chatted, we danced a little bit. Um, I didn't hook up with her that night, but I got her contact. The next day we went on a date, and then it went down. And then I was like, whoa, like, oh my God, that worked like so well. And then I just was like, okay, I'm gonna try to keep my vibe positive and my energy up. And then all of a sudden, boom, boom, boom. In like 3 weeks, I think I hooked up with like 4 or 5 girls after meeting this guy. And so yeah, in terms of dating, his advice really it changed my direction completely.
It was exactly
And
what you
also,
needed to hear.
yeah, and also he being from Jamaica, I don't know if you know about Jamaican people, but they know how to talk to girls, especially like in the street, especially like cold approach, like anywhere outside, daytime, whatever. So he also taught me a lot about that. And and again, and I'll also add he's a vegan and doesn't drink, so we bonded over, you know, not drinking. And because of his kind of diet, I also started being vegan as of like 3 or 4 months ago. So yeah, there's a lot of changes have kind of happened. I would say it's partly my direction, partly choosing the people I want to be around and their positive influence that it had on me.
It really is all related. I mean, as you've described it, this thing of networking, game, learning, your sort of life philosophy, energy that you put across,
Yeah,
it really does tie in together. And the friend you've described really sounds like he has a very strong internal locus of control, and that is such. It's a very attractive thing in anyone you meet, because
hmm,
especially when you're around people who know what it is that they want and I don't have a sense of hunger in them,
mm,
just like how Japanese women don't like thirsty guys. If you are not in lacking, it really fills your life with abundance that draws people in and is like, wow, this person really is enjoying this. Why do they enjoy this? And um, so many things that we are drawn to in life have that sort of energy. If you go to, I don't know, a coffee shop for an example, and they're in love with coffee and they love all the things that they do. Whereas if you go to
yeah,
a coffee shop and they hate the particular coffee they make and they hate their location and they hate everything, oh, we wish we could be better, we wish we could be otherwise. It's a negative thing that we're
yeah,
hardwired as human beings to run away from. We go towards light and we go towards warmth and such things. So I think fundamentally, on so many different ways, what your friend described doesn't sound like some hippie bullshit. It actually sounds like a good way to draw people in and make your life a lot happier. Much
yeah,
how you mentioned with alcohol as well. You mentioned how you almost feel a sort of restraint and it's like a weight you were carrying, and
yeah.
how now that you've met a friend who, again, he carries no weight on him. He doesn't have a need for meat and these, as you mentioned, superficial pleasures. He's after the
Right,
deeper thing and he's aligned his life
absolutely.
in that way. And I relate to it so much because I also was walking around with massive thirst. Like if I could just find a beautiful woman, she could make my life so exciting and so. And I would hang around models because I'm a photographer. I'd hang around models and they'll treat you like a doormat. And it was always just temporary. You feel good for about a week max, and they treat you like shit. And now you have to like find even more beautiful women to try fulfill
You're
you.
surrounded by a
Yeah,
bunch of models, and
yeah.
especially models, they're going to do this sort of manipulative energy, like
Oh yeah.
they want they want you to look at them and give them attention
Mm,
and suck you into their sort of vortex,
yeah.
which in turn is going to make you feel lower energy.
Yep.
Do this when you're around models, which sometimes I am, do it at clubs. You feel them doing that,
Yeah.
that your own independent positive energy strong. And what that, if you do that, you're not going to give them attention, because by giving them attention you're going to lose energy. So you're probably going to look the other way and they're going to be like, hmm, Like, damn, why is he looking at me or something like that? And just you watch, they're gonna have more respect for you because you're not simping
Big
into
time.
their energy. Yeah.
It's one of the massive things that's created, if I could call it, the simp pandemic. And guys, you need to vaccinate yourself from the simpery. It's a real thing. And I wasted so many years of my life and mental energy over pointless things. And once you've had your fill, and you know, when you've had your fill of happiness and joy, makes you so much more productive, and you can really grow as a person, much like a plant. Once it gets its sunlight and its water, and trees start emerging. So, um, you know,
Basically, the law is be selfish before selfless before being selfless. So take care of yourself before you take care of somebody else. So make sure you're
amen to that.
set before any hot girl, before any, even if the girl is hot as hell, like don't be like she's a queen, like treat her like a queen, like respect yourself. Like you can enjoy her time, but like make sure you're keeping yourself strong around her, you know. Um, I think that for you personally, you would really enjoy reading this book, Ask and It Is Given. I think it's gonna really like give you a great added perspective. And also, if you're interested in talking to my Jamaican friend, he's also living in Japan now, and I think he'll give you a lot of perspective of like what it's like to live in Japan as a foreigner. Um, he also has a lot of experiences about what it's like to live as a black person. Like we have a different experience, me being a white guy versus him being a guy who's of African descent that has dreadlocks. He has a lot of experiences because of that. So I think you would enjoy talking to him.
Yeah, yes, please
um,
send him through. Maybe we won't be plugging his stuff unless he's okay with that. If he's looking for
yeah,
followers, always welcoming.
he doesn't have social media. I mean,
Oh
that's how
wow.
he rolls. But he's definitely, he likes to promote his work. So I think that would be
Yes,
useful.
please. He really sounds like somebody who, again, has hacked the matrix and has really seen how a lot of these are but traps. And
Yeah,
if you stick with what really matters, you can live a very happy and fulfilled life.
absolutely.
Mm,
Absolutely.
mm.
Basically, what it's getting back to is like your innate sense of just feeling happy
Yeah.
and being joyful, because life is good when you're happy. It's not about acquiring things. It's not about getting things. It's not even about getting lots of women or lots of money. It's about feeling good, you know? Because richness in life is about being happy, you know? And of course,
So
experience
true.
bring you happiness. Like, yes, being with women makes you happy. Yes, getting money can make you happy, but that in itself does not bring you happiness. It's about the experience getting to there that makes you happy, or along the way. So if you just are all about, I'm going to just grind, suffer until I get this, when you finally get that, you're like, fuck, was that even worth it? Because I suffered through all that like mud and shit to get there, and then once you get it, you want something else and it never ends. So like just enjoy the process, enjoy the journey, enjoy the day to day, enjoy those times when you are poor, because you can still have fun.
Mm.
Yeah.
So true.
and and when you finally get to that place, it's gonna be so much sweeter than like if you suffered through all that to get to that point. You know what I mean? Like so many rich people aren't happy.
Yep.
People with all this stuff are not happy because they're not happy with themselves.
Mm.
You know? Yeah.
Totally. Did you ever come across the term ikigai in Japan? So many Japanese people talk about ikigai, or the French call it raison d'être, your reason for being. And
Hmm.
just, yeah, it's such an amazing concept. I wouldn't even do it justice if I described it with a one-liner. But ikigai is, again, it's a very important thing within Japanese happiness. Because in Japan there are many temples and shrines and a lot of very extremely deep, refined philosophy, life philosophy, and
Sure.
a lot of it relates to ikigai and
Mm.
what is really the point of life. And again, I'll sound like a hippie if I go into it, but again, it's
I
really
like
oh wow,
fellowship.
Japan is
Yeah.
filled with ikigai. Ikigai is a big reason for a lot of what you
I've
see in
but
Japan.
I've never really looked into it. No,
Yeah,
don't shame at all for saying that. Like,
wow.
I love talking about philosophical, spiritual sort of things. I
Mm,
mean, I'm very much into Buddhism. I
mm,
mean, Buddhism really kind of shaped my way I live. As I said, I did a 10-day Buddhist meditation, and
mm.
a lot of what I learned there really kind of, you know, has brought my life into a better direction. Um, yeah, I'd be curious to look into that because Japan is a very interesting country in that it's very Buddhist influenced, but at the
Yep,
same time, the Buddhism that Japan practices is so now
yep,
distant from what original Buddhism was.
yep.
So meditation I was learning was based on the original Buddha's teachings from India
Oh yeah.
2,000 years ago. It's not about, there is no God, there is no worship, there is no devotion. It's about it's a life practice for being happier, for being more at peace. There is no leader or, but now you look at where has Buddhism gone since then. Like in Japan, in Taiwan, there's Taiwanese Buddhism, Chinese Buddhism, there's temples, there's shrines, there's worship, there's rituals. There's, in Japan especially, you have kami-sama, like all these
Yep.
gods that people pray to. People literally take money and put it in a shrine
Yep.
hoping for something. That is so far away from what Buddhism is
Mm.
now, that it's
You know
just
the story
like,
of Daruma? The red,
um,
the
oh yeah,
red
those
like ball guy, and the eyes come off, and that's yeah,
actually,
the Daruma Buddhism. That's also a
yeah, like
hectic thing. He meditated so hard his limbs fell off, but he reached nirvana. So yeah,
okay, I didn't know the story.
incredible story.
But
It's so Japanese Buddhism. That's like key Japanese Buddhism. That's why when people are when they say ganbatte kudasai, when they're saying
uh,
someone is pursuing something, you get them a little daruma, and then if
right,
you fill out one eye, then if they accomplish what they wanted, you fill out the other one, and it's just that meditation and persistence and uh, focused on what you truly want to desire as your body withers away and you get to the goal. It sounds a bit dark, but it's
hard working.
yeah, it's like it's about such strong
Right,
inner control because deep down that's the purpose of life. Our bodies wither, but what we thought and the energy we put across is what makes the impact live on.
right.
So yeah,
That's definitely a Japanese philosophy, like
yeah.
complete dedication.
Self-sacrifice, complete the
Yeah,
task. Um, there's a
I mean,
superficial side to Japan, but a deep side too. So
there are some good attributes to Japan, like that, like the dedication they have, the hard work. That does have some good quality to it. Also, they're very humble people. They're not one to brag and talk about themselves and show off, which, coming from America, like, it's refreshing.
why
I'm
do you
just like,
think that is though? That you mentioned such an interesting. Why do you think that is?
what, that Americans are like that or that Japanese?
Why we have that difference?
Um, I think it's history
Yeah.
again.
Yep.
Like, look at American history. Look, it's kind of amazing what Americans have done.
Yep.
They came from like rebels of British Empire to
Mm.
its own like most powerful country now in the world
Mm.
economically,
Yep.
whatever. I think they have that arrogance and that we can do everything. We've
Mm.
won these wars. We've conquered here and there, and
Yeah. It's what's worked in the past.
yeah, we can, whatever we want, we can do it. Is the sort of American mentality where, which has its pros and cons. I would say now it has more cons than pros in modern America.
Yeah.
But in Japan, it's like, there's a hierarchy, there's a ladder. You're at the bottom, like, and even wherever you are, it's not about like kind of telling everybody how great you are. it's about being humble and working hard to get what you want, you know, which I like that part of Japanese culture because there aren't people just like out there just talking about themselves, showing
Yeah,
off. You don't see Japanese people do that.
yeah,
You go to America, everywhere.
yeah. Japanese people have mastered the humble brag, much like Koreans as well. Korean people, I think, humble brag even better than Japanese people. Like, there's such an art to it where someone can show you how truly great they are without
Yeah.
actually saying it, and it hits you so hard, like, he did it to
Oh,
let me know. Like, even in Japanese anime, they've got very simple ways of like really bashing each other. Like it's so subtle, but I think there's one Japanese phrase where they'll say 100nen mae, where they'll say you are 100 years away from ever beating me. And it just means you have, even if you practice for 100 years, you still wouldn't be at the level to take me on. And it's
wow.
very subtle and small. Even sometimes when like they make like an incredible building, they'll say, "Oh,
Yeah.
we so humbly made it so sustainable and we didn't waste a single thing." And it's like, you're just showing off that you can do something this amazing. Just yeah,
Yeah.
they really mastered the art of the humble brag. It is and it's
That
incredible.
you're to kind of show their stuff without
Yeah.
like explicitly saying. It's kind of like
Yeah.
a
But inherently, people are exactly the same. The reason why they do it is beauty needs
it's
to be
nice.
recognized, strength needs something to lift. It's a human need. So inherently, now I believe at our core, Americans or Japanese are in fact exactly the same. We just do it in a bit of a different way. But
But I
yeah,
like the way they do it in Asia more. It just feels to be honest, man,
it
I
tastes
can't
nicer. It's got a nicer aftertaste, but it's the same
I,
medicine. It's
I can't live in America right now. I feel completely overwhelmed and swamped and like
mm,
and Americans are so indirect nowadays, I find, like, and not down to earth. And like, yeah, Japanese people can be also indirect too in a way, but like I find they actually listen to what you're saying, or they'll like talk more straight in a way. But like, uh, there's just so much flexing going on in America, like,
mm.
or like trying to talk like a rapper, or trying to
Oh,
sound like somebody, or like sound
try fit
gangster,
into what school?
you
Okay.
know? Sound like you have this sort of finesse, but you're really just a regular dude, or like try to sound extra is
Mm.
what it's all about in America. Everything's so extra, or like um, trying to be reckless or ignorant, or like a little edgy. Like, oh yeah, like,
Mm.
you know,
Mm.
I
It's
just, oh my God, I
It's
can't
so
handle that.
interesting you say that. I'd almost imagine with your career now and your life trajectory with DJing, modeling, like Los Angeles might be the next destination you might have to, bump into. Especially with your personality, once you've grown to a certain
Yeah,
thing, you seem like a problem solver and a challenge solver. So most likely, if I had to make a prediction with the direction you're going now, the next big
yeah,
challenge you're going to look for is going to be, whoop, you're going to throw yourself into the deep end and try to figure out LA or something like
that's
that.
so funny you say that, because I was like back home in the US like last month, and I was flying through LAX and just walking around the airport. I kind of got the vibe like, if I end up like succeeding in Tokyo in the acting modeling scene, and I reach that point, like the next move would be, I think, LA, because that's where all the movers and shakers are in the music industry and the modeling and the acting industry. If you really want to get to the pinnacle, LA is where it's at, you know? So I feel like I would have to at least spend some time there just to see what it would be like. And LA is a very international place too. And yeah, I think I would be curious to see what it would be like there. Um,
It's normally what happens. Most big celebs in Japan, or just no, let me not say celebs. It's people within entertainment and that sort of thing. Especially when I was pushing photography, it's a normal life path as the global game continues. You have to get to the epicenter, see, do you like it? Do you not like it? Make your mark. No, 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 make your movie or whatever, and then you'll
Yeah.
move to like an Akia in rural Japan and be like, all right, I'm done. Oh, industry tainted me. I'm good. Or
Spain or
make your mark and then yeah, continue, do something else.
prior to a company. Yeah, I think you're right. That's funny you say that. First, yeah, I'm kind of gonna see where I can go in Japan, try to do my best in the acting world, and then yeah, it's interesting you brought that up.
Yeah, definitely. I'm sure many more amazing things to come. And I think on that note, I want to say a big thank you for joining my podcast. You really gave some very interesting enlightenment and books to read. And on that note, is there anything else you'd like to say?
Yeah, no, man, like I think we covered a lot. It'd be cool to get to know you better, like, if we could ever meet in person, and you seem like a pretty cool dude.
Definitely. Do you know,
Um,
we have to meet randomly as some random gig. It has to be in like in Poland or Ukraine. I have to put that out into the universe, somewhere random. And I'll just be
so
in
you're
this funky hip hop club and I'll be surrounded by women. And you'll be like, hey, didn't I do a podcast with that guy? Like, yeah, man. Law of
yeah,
attraction,
that
man. Law of attraction. I remember.
would happen. You're based in South Africa,
Yeah.
so
Yeah,
you're
yeah.
a
Cape
Cape Town,
Town, South Africa. That's it.
and that's where you're from.
Yeah.
Okay, cool, man. I've
Hmm.
always wanted to go to South Africa actually, so maybe someday I'll end up over there. But
DJ
yeah,
World
man, it's
Tour, make it happen. It's gonna happen. After all these pandemics and what have you, and the world's traveling again, like, the world is your playground.
yeah, it'd be nice to hear your story too. Like I was thinking to start my own podcast. I maybe if you could give me some tips on like how to get that started, like what platforms and things to use. Because to be
Definitely,
honest, I
I
have
think you should 100% be doing that. You've got an amazing charisma to you, and you know how to conceptualize a story. And yes, I definitely agree. I'm gonna send you a lot of like I'll just flood your inbox on IG with recommendations. But yeah, and you meet so many people in Japan, especially in the nightlife scene. Riley Suave podcast coming soon. You heard it first here.
thanks, man. Thanks, man. Appreciate it. Like, thanks for everyone for tuning in up to this point. If you were listening,
You better be
I'm all
follow him on IG.
yeah,
Interesting
I'm
things
always
happening. Yeah.
talk to anybody in the fashion, music, art, modeling world. If you want to shoot me out, like in respect for the host for making this connection. So I appreciate
100%.
that.
New episodes coming soon. Night, everybody.